Rocky 3 was a lie. That's the real takeaway from last night. It doesn't matter how much you refocus, you can stop smoking, you can stop making your hair Skittles, you can stop jorking it, delete all your social media apps off your phone, work on your takedown defense, hire David Goggins to scream at you while you eat nothing but cod and broccoli for 3 months, put on some much needed mass. There's still a grapple goblin that's coming for you, and he's not going to stop, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Mr. T would have smashed Rocky in the rematch. That is the reality, and it was the reality of this honestly pointless rematch we got last night. Look, I get it, the UFC has invested a lot of marketing into Sean O'Malley, and fans do genuinely enjoy him to some degree. He is a name. How could he not be? He headlined the most stupidly expensive card ever. And to be fair, they were going nuts for him last night. I guess that Lee Greenwood walkout really worked. And the division is one that fans aren't really going crazy over. Like, yeah, Corey Sandhagen is absolutely next, but I'm sure it'll be a co-main event on a card with a much bigger fight on it because that is not a headliner. But you got a headliner out of O'Malley. Unfortunately for Sean, though, then the fight happened. And even with all the narratives, the changes that Sean made, the injury before the first fight storyline that the UFC leaned into really heavy, I don't think anybody expected any different outcome than what we got last time. There is only so much a fighter that has reached the peak of the sport can improve. Like, yes, your grappling can get better, but it's never going to be the level of Merab. And as for being injured, to paraphrase a line from Wayne's World 2, a lot of people come into a fight with injuries.
Even if I have to cut it off one toe, it's no problem.
I feel like the only time the UFC brings that narrative out is when they're trying to justify a title shot that they know doesn't make sense. But whatever, we were there, it happened, Sean hadn't fought in a year, and while his grappling defense was improved, it was still almost entirely ineffective. Like, he landed a few good shots on the feet here and there, but by and large, he had absolutely nothing for Merab yet again. And this time he would get finished on top of it. I really don't know what you do with O'Malley from here because I do think the UFC feels like they have a star in him, but how exactly you get anything else out of him at this point, I really don't know. He's a lot like Conor in that because of the way they've built him up, I can't even picture him just competing in normal fights right back down in the division again. Maybe a weight change is the next move. That's a classic go-to when trying to refresh a fallen star. I know one thing that I am pretty certain about though, he's not going to be a bantamweight champion so long as Merab is fighting in the UFC. And I mean, shit, at this point, maybe nobody else will be either. Dvalishvili's first 2 fights in the UFC were a bit of a clusterfuck for him, but since then, this dude is, well, he's the machine. And you know the talk that's coming because the UFC started it right there on the broadcast with Joe, DC, and John. The bantamweight GOAT talk. One more defense puts him at 3, that ties Aljo, and unlike Aljo, there's no TJ Dillashaw wet noodle shoulder fight. Corey Sandhagen would be a strong 3rd defense. And when you factor in that he's already got wins over Petr Yan and Henry Cejudo on his way to the gold, he is absolutely going to be in the argument. Now, of course, the question always goes immediately to, how in the hell is that better than Dominic Cruz? The WEC bantamweight title was just the UFC title by a different name, and Cruz has 5 different defenses he can point to with names like Joe B, Faber, TJ, Mighty Mouse. Those are huge. I personally don't think that anybody is even remotely close to Cruz yet in the history of this division, but the argument that Rogan made was that it's more impressive because Merab is doing it in the modern era. Not sure how much water that idea holds with me, but there is no doubt that Merab is looking like one of the most unstoppable champions the UFC has had in a hot minute, and he's still got plenty of years to build a legacy that gets him in that Cruz argument a bit more legitimately, but right now I think it's a tad bit premature. Speaking of premature and Joe Rogan, that's not what I meant. Let's talk about his other big declaration following the other title fight we got last night in Jersey. Is Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes the biggest fight in the history of the women's bantamweight division? Well, it's certainly a massive one, especially right now, but it's hard to argue that given what Amanda did after and what Ronda did before, that their fight wasn't the biggest in the history of the division. There's absolutely no question that it's Nunes and then Rousey 1-2 at the top of 135 all time. So that we got a fight between them, I think makes it hard to argue. But the fact that there's even an argument at all, I think is a testament to what everybody is seeing in Harrison, which is someone that appears to be one of the most dominant forces WMMA has ever had. And I mean, if she can beat Amanda Nunes, she's sealed her place place as an all-time great regardless. But I do think we're just a bit premature when we make declarations like that, because what happens next between those two will really determine the legacy of Harrison, far more so than Nunes. If Harrison loses, what did she do? She beat Pena for the title, but most people don't even think Pena should have been champion. They thought Pennington beat her in their last fight. So if Kayla loses to Amanda, her legacy is absolutely in question. She needs that win badly. Interestingly enough though, if she defeats Nunes, I'm not really sure what's left for her beyond that. And given how difficult her weight cut is getting at 135, I have a feeling she's not long for this sport, because the UFC isn't going to just resurrect that non-existent featherweight division again unless Harrison suddenly becomes super popular, but I don't see them justifying it. That said, if she beats Nunes, she can ride off into the sunset and will be in that all-time great argument based on the merit of that win. The only thing I know for certain, this division desperately needed Harrison to win, and even more desperately needs that Nunes fight. It is the perfect bout at the perfect time. Their history as teammates, Nunes' legacy, the perceived potential of Harrison, it is perfect. All right, now that we've gone through the major happenings of 316, let's break this thing down by the numbers and pass out some awards, shall we? The UFC's 23rd trip to New Jersey saw 13 fights with 3 KO, TKOs, 3 submissions, 7 decisions, for a total cage time of 2 hours, 33 minutes, 23 seconds. There were 10 favorites that got wins last night, and just 3 dogs. Who'da thunk it, huh? If you happen to put money on Merab subbing Sugar in the 3rd round, you're probably buying the next round at the bar, because that was a plus 4,000 outcome. Goodness gracious. Kevin Holland scored his 4th submission victory in the UFC when he finished Vicente Luque. He's on a 2-fight run now, and if he wins his next one, it'll be the longest win streak he's had since 2020. Mario Bautista spoiled Patchy Mix's UFC debut with another performance that made everybody mad, but that is now 8 straight in the UFC, his 4th straight decision. If this dude ends up in a title fight anytime soon, fans are gonna lose their minds, so I'm giving him our X-Pac Heat Award. Well, after round 1, it wasn't the performance that Joe Pyfer really wanted, despite getting the W, but with 2 knockdowns in the 1st round, he becomes only the 2nd ever fighter behind Israel Adesanya to get more than 1 on the always game Kelvin Gastelum, so that's something. Just 3 fights into her UFC career, Kayla Harrison is champion. The 2 champions she faced in the UFC, Pena and Holly Holm, Kayla outstruck more than 7-1. Whether that stat holds up against Amanda Nunes, TBD. That was the 1st ever career win for Merab by a choke. Only his 2nd submission victory, period. 1st submission loss for O'Malley, really the 1st ever stop that's not in dispute by Sean, or maybe it will be actually. Either way, for all that, I'm gonna give Merab our Submission Goblin Award. And that was 316, fight fans. Give me a hell yeah, what? An absolutely gigantic thank you to the legendary Max Randall for always powering through these autopsies, working all night long so you can get this first thing on Sunday morning. Follow his socials, go check out his YouTube channel, and say something nice to him if you come across him.
Your hair looks small.
Oh, another huge thank you to our channel members. You are the glue that keeps this whole ship together. Fight fans, hit the join button, become a member, get exclusive content. It is that simple. Like and subscribe because we do these after every pay-per-view. Leave a comment about all things 316. I'm going to be reading through all of them with a Steve Weiser in hand. And thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your Sunday. International Fight Week, here we come.